Hello, everybody. This is the Tokyo FinTech podcast, and we welcome today Jose from Electronic Identification. Hi, Jose. How are you today?
Hi, Norbert. Thank you very much for inviting me today. It's quite a pleasure to be here to talk with you and reach to everybody interested in FinTech in Japan.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have two objectives today. One is we want to learn, of course, a bit more about what electronic ID does. And the second part of the conversation, you have been part of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Accelerator last year. So we want to talk about your experience and bring that a bit to life, because the next batch, the application deadline is in early July. So we can inform everybody who's thinking about applying what it actually means to be part of the program. But let's start with EID. What does EID do?
Okay, EID is, in a nutshell, EID is an e-trust service provider under European regulations, which means we work on identification and authentication, also on electronic signature, basically for people online. What we do here, our core business, is identifying people online for financial institutions, mainly banks, and mainly for KYC, know your customer, and anti-money laundering purposes to avoid any potential risk when opening bank accounts or contracting more complex products, such as it could be mortgages or wealth management, any asset management, my bad, and all these processes. We are not only focused on financial, but that's absolutely our core.
And so you said you're originating from Spain. Where's actually your headquarters?
Our headquarters are in, this is a funny story, we are on Barcelona Street in Madrid.
On the Barcelona Street in Madrid. So, okay.
Yes.
And Barcelona seems to have become a bit of a center for technical development. You're sticking to the capital.
Yes, absolutely.
And so at some point, you as Electronic ID, you decided to kind of branch out into Asia, and you were looking at the market. Can you talk about your process of looking at developing that business and how Japan then came up as a target market?
As I was telling before, the core activity of the company is identifying people online, right? So when you think of people, where are the most populated countries in the world? Which in Asia, right? So if any company trying to survive in this kind of market has to or will grow up, let's say, has to reach to Asia at some point. When this happened for electronic identification in 2018, early 2018, we started to work on to participate, let's say, on entity data innovation contests in Madrid. This regional contest, we won it. So the company was invited to participate on the finals in Tokyo, March or April 2018, I think. So there we had quite a nice experience and had the feeling, also an update on what regulators were doing there concerning identification online and KYC. So we saw there was an opportunity there for our technology. A couple of months later, a colleague from us told us that this accelerator, the TMG FinTech Business Camp, was starting, the new cohort. And so he proposed us to participate, that it could be interesting for us. So I checked on all these features, what the plan was, the journey, and I saw it was indeed the thing to do to start operating in Japan. So there we went.
Wonderful. So very, very successful story then. How did the process work of applying for the TMG, Tokyo Metropolitan Government Accelerator?
The process actually was quite smooth. This submitting this form online to be filled and then sent to the company. Sorry. Yes, the organizers last year was Accenture, who was managing all the organization. I don't know about this year. They contacted us to have a small interview, quite quick, and later on in midsummer they told us we have been selected to participate, and that we have to be in Tokyo in the first weeks of October. The journey actually was was meant to be, and from the first week of October to the first week of December, if I'm not wrong, for these introductions, matching, business matching, and some pitch meetings, meetups. That was it. First weeks of October, I was already in Japan.
And so for the program itself, so it's like a 8 or 10 week program. You got exposure to a number of corporate partners of the program. How did all that immersion happen? How many companies did you work with? And then at the end also, what are the commercial results for you as participating in this program?
Around 10 days, 2 weeks before flying to Tokyo, I received a full agenda, a full schedule on meetings, and it was quite about 12 meetings, I think. I'm not sure at the moment, but around 12 meetings with these corporate partners. Among them, banks or insurance companies, tech companies. It was quite different between them, but really, really interesting and strong. The most interesting point on this is that I would have taken a lot of time to manage myself to get to these people, not only to these people, but to these companies, to sit down with me and having this meeting. So the word accelerator this time takes all the sense because it saves us a lot of time, effort, and of course investment to reach to the right people on the right places and start having some conversations. After that, results on the commercial side. I'm not going to surprise anybody if I tell that doing business for a foreign company in Japan takes some time. So you have to commit there for having this. So at the moment, what we have achieved is doing a couple of POCs and starting to work with some partners. On live operations, we haven't begun so far, but we are expecting to do it by late this year. So the time expected, what I've been told and what I'm gonna tell if anybody asks me, is to start business, to start doing anything as little as it can be considered. In Japan, it takes for a foreign company around a year, a bit more maybe. As I told before, committing, building trust, and starting to do something meaningful there. So far, I'm happy with the results, because I didn't expect to have a quick answer on the market. But thanks to this program, we have had the ability, the capability of reaching the people and reaching or starting the engine, let's say. not maybe the result, but starting the engine, definitely.
Wonderful. So take away great access to corporate partners. It would have taken a long time to get to the right level and opening the doors, and then kind of using that as an accelerator, then get into POCs and developing a partner business, still realizing that you still need a patient approach in this country, and it just takes a little bit of time to build the trust, of course. So not rushing it, taking very deliberate steps forward, it seems.
I couldn't say anything better than that. Yes.
Do you have any advice to kind of other companies when it comes to like localization of the product or the documentation? How did you go about it? Did you have everything translated into Japanese or selective things? What about your software itself is very compact, so maybe localizing that in Japanese is actually not that difficult.
From our side, what we do is what we have is an API which can be stuck in the middle of the platforms or the applications of the client as a puzzle piece. And what the final user is watching in the end is an interface to show their documents, their face, and with some small instructions on text and speech on the screen. What we had to do to customize, to locate the product for Japan was just translating that piece and using a bot for doing the speech. So it was, let's say, quite easy. But it's absolutely necessary. It's a must to adapt the product to the market. Then there's the recommendation for those coming or trying to come there is in the very beginning, all the materials to be shared has to be in Japanese, that's required, because the first people that you're going to find are probably going to speak English, maybe a bit English, or something more, something less, but all the information has to reach to the rest of the companies, and definitely they need to have it on Japanese. That's something something expected to the companies, and something that has to be done. And afterwards, then you can come into the product. But first of all, the materials for having this approach.
Absolutely required. Understood. Just going back a bit to the product and the regulation, are the European regulations and the Japanese regulation fairly identical? So that you could basically lift the product over in its entirety, or did you have to change the functionality a little bit as well?
There are two sides here on the regulation that affects us. Let's say one is the EKYC regulation that was released in Japan on November last year, and the other one is the data privacy. Basically, as you may know, the GDPR from Europe was released as well last year. And Japan is working, or is already released as well, another regulation regarding data privacy, which somehow matches the GDPR. So there's no problem there. That's on that side, that's okay. Then we have the eKYC. On Europe, we have different approaches on different countries, but the stricter regulation requires a video identification, video conference, or using a video feed, a video stream, to extract the information and interact with the user. While in Japan, what they have done is requiring images, which can relate to pictures, to video, to anything that ensures the best security possible. What we have, one of our edges here, our advantages, is that we can work with any technology on this identification business, right? From pictures to video conference, even NFC reading, all of that we have comprised it on our API. Our adaptation is already done. We have just to give the keys to the client and let them select to decide which kind of product they want to use. From one side, my recommendation is, of course, watch the regulations, adapt your product as the best you can. But for us, we have this advantage that we didn't need to adapt the product so far beyond language, as we talked before.
Excellent, thank you. So it looks like you're within about a year of taking kind of the NTT experience also into kind of within a year, you've got really good traction in Japan, and it's obviously the biggest market in Asia, if you leave kind of China, which is very, very specific challenges to decide. What's your plan for the rest of Asia? What comes after Japan?
Out of Japan, we have been focusing on strong financial markets, as well as Tokyo is, but also as it could be Hong Kong or Singapore. Our strategy here is to reach some references in those markets. We have quite some good advances in Hong Kong, soon to reach to Singapore, to have some references on these strong places that gives some confidence, some trust to other ones, as it could be mainland China or Philippines, that's quite active at the moment, or Indonesia, for instance, the whole ASEAN area in general. But our first steps are, as you know, and as I have just mentioned, Japan, Hong Kong, and Singapore.
Excellent. I think, Jose, thank you very much. I think we'll put this out to support everybody who wants to apply for the next phase of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Accelerator. The deadline for that is July 5th. So anybody who listened to this, encouraged to apply and open the Japanese market for themselves as well. I think it's very good to have companies like yours in this market and to help innovation and drive forward change in this country. So appreciate you taking the time, and hope to see you very soon in Tokyo again.
Thank you, Norbert. It's been quite a pleasure again, and hopefully all of those listening to us in this program will find the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Accelerator suitable for them, because it actually is, and I recommend it.
Super. And we'll sign off for today. Thank you very much, Jose, again. This was the Tokyo FinTech podcast with Jose from Electronic Identification. Have a good day.